You're listening to the Geek Watch Podcast, episode 78. Fox movies? What Fox movies?
This is the Geek Watch Podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 78 of the Geek Watch Podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, as always, Geek Watch's own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petrie.
Hello, Brian.
So we have movie news today and some things to talk about, but before we get started with that, let's talk some streaming news, since we've got some new streaming information coming out. A couple pieces have come out, and the battlefield is getting bloodier than ever, but your war correspondents are here to talk about it. But well, mention first of all, Netflix has lost again, unfortunately. CW has decided not to renew their streaming contract with Netflix. So apparently they're coming out with their own app. So if you want to see CW shows, the majority of them, I believe, will be coming out it'll come out like the day after it shows on the television, except for 3 shows. Batwoman and KATY KEENE, which is a spinoff of Riverdale. KATY KEENE was an old Archie cartoon or a comic. And it'll be running on HBO Max.
Well, that's interesting.
Warner Brothers owns HBO Max, and so I guess they're basically kind of, they've got to deal with them.
Is it a grittier, I know that Riverdale is, kind of a grittier, not that Archie was ever shied away from the heavier topics.
Right.
But it did always feel like a more lighthearted comic.
Yeah, my understanding of this is that this is a comedy/musical television show.
Really? Okay, so like Fame or Glee.
Yeah, I think so, because my understanding of the comic is Katie, or at least of the show, is that she's going to New York and she's trying to become a fashion designer, and there's these 4 different people that are trying to make it in New York as fashion designers, and that's the crux of the show. So I guess it's
kind of, I guess in Fame, where they went to the High School of the Arts, and then in Glee, they were in Glee Club. So singing and dancing kind of made sense, but fashion designers, that's a stretch. That's more like a regular musical, just bursting into song for no reason.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it at least it makes a little bit more sense than Cop Rock. But yeah, so basically Batwoman and KATY KEENE will show on HBO Max until they get to the end of the season, and then you'll be able to see it on the CW app. Nancy Drew is on CBS All Access, and it's a CW show, and you'll be able to see it on CBS All Access, and then at the end of the season, then that'll go to the CW. So those very popular CW shows, especially the superhero shows, of course, Netflix doesn't have them any longer, but they are coming out with new stuff. And so let's talk about a couple of trailers that I've seen. I don't know if you've seen yet, but did you see the new Dark Crystal trailer?
Yes.
Was that amazing or what?
You really saw how the world worked and everything. And this new one, it's, you're getting so much more of the character, so much, it seems so important. And then talking the other day with my D&D group that it's like Rogue One. You know how this is going to end.
Oh yeah, you've got that. Yeah, it's not going to be great, obviously, but you get to see that journey there.
Yes,
so.
And they have so much passion, and they're like, things are going to change, and the Skeksis lied to us, and it's just, it's going to be heartbreaking.
Yeah. Well, it's the way they end the trailer. It's like, is everything going to change? Yes, for the better. I'm like, oh, spoiler alert! I saw the movie. But wow, as groundbreaking as the Dark Crystal was, and when it came out in the theaters, this looks like 100 times bigger and more epic and amazing, and but still very much a lot of practical effects. But again, you're looking at Jim Henson Studios. I mean, what more could you expect of that? Mm-hmm. But boy, have they stepped their game up in a huge way.
Right. Well, so much, even the tiniest robotics now have, really enhanced puppetry, I think, more so even than just, think about Yoda and all the little mechanisms in his face just to make everything that he does, his mouth pucker, his eyebrows move, his ears twitch. Well, they've gotten so much more advanced.
Yeah.
Just the slightest little movement, and I'm really excited to see this.
Oh, yeah. It looks really, really good, and we should be seeing that really soon. The other trailer that I saw for that's going to be coming out on Netflix, did you see the trailer for the new Invader Zim movie?
No, but I never watched Invader Zim when it, on its short run. I kind of remember it being on
Nickelodeon,
but I never
yes.
watched it. So
I've caught it in bits and pieces.
Mm-hmm.
It was of that time period at Nickelodeon when they were coming out with weird cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
They were really taking chances, and this was definitely one of them. I mean, you got a show about alien invasion. A funny show about alien invasion. And so the name of this TV movie is Invader Zim Enter the Florpus. I don't know what that means.
Huh.
Like I said, I've only seen Invader Zim in little pieces here and there, but it looks really good. It looks obviously very true to the original show.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the Invader Zim geek watchers out there who grew up with Invader Zim watching Invader Zim on Nickelodeon. I'm sure they're definitely looking forward to this, and I'm going to have to check it out myself. It looks really good.
Now, I did grow up watching Rocko's Modern Life.
Right.
And I did see that trailer. And that looked pretty funny. It's an interesting concept of this sort of, frozen in time, Rip Van Winkle.
Right.
They've got this kind of trope to Rocko. So that's going to be neat to see, too.
Yeah. I can see that there's a lot of different companies, different production companies that are pulling out all the different IPs that they can, and Nickelodeon is no different. They had all these popular cartoon shows, and now getting a chance to revisit them, especially for people who grew up with them, and now, putting them on Netflix and people getting a chance to see them.
Well, I can remember when Nickelodeon sold Doug to Disney,
right.
And I think that they sold Ren and Stimpy to MTV, if I'm not mistaken. I can recall, I think.
I remember that John Kricfalusi had come back to do what it was called Ren and Stimpy's Adult Party, which I saw parts of it. I was a big fan of Ren and Stimpy when it was on Nickelodeon. Watched it every Sunday. Couldn't believe that they were
the stuff they got away with.
The stuff that they were getting away with.
The Adult Party, really? It wasn't that child friendly to begin with.
Right. Well, with Adult Party, when it was on Spike TV, they really did.
Spike, okay.
Yeah, they really did cross the line in a lot of.
Wow.
I mean, it was, and I have to say to a degree that I wasn't that much of a fan of it because for me, when the humor was a little more subtle, I think it worked a lot better.
You had to get more creative with it.
You had to be creative with it, and I think that's where it really worked. When it was supposed to be a kid's cartoon, and there were those adult moments that would fly over the heads of the kids, but when you're being blatant about it, and you have frontal nudity
it's like when old movies were getting around the Hays Code without people noticing.
Yeah. Well, it was more salacious that way, to be honest. I mean, when you knew you weren't supposed to do it and you were doing it, to me, that worked a lot better. I do want to talk a little bit of Disney because, of course, we've been talking a while now about the Disney Fox deal.
Right.
And news has come out. I was reading an article in Variety yesterday about some issues that are coming up with Disney and Fox, specifically a lot of the movies that Fox had planned, and it looks like Disney's about ready to wipe them all out and kill it with fire. So, I mean, there are some movies that are far enough along that they're going to happen. I mean, we're going to see the Avatar sequels. I don't see any reason for Disney to get rid of those anyway.
They've got Pandora in their parks, so
right, and so that's going to be that one is safe. The Steven Spielberg, his remake of West Side Story, it's going to get made, obviously, but there is a slew of Fox projects that are getting put on the chopping block. Apparently. The Legion TV show that was really popular on Fox is going away after this season. But then again, it just seems like Marvel on television, or at least as it is now, all of that's getting pretty much wiped out because, of course, all the Fox shows are going away and Netflix basically pulled the plug themselves.
Right.
But Noah Hawley, I think is his name, he created the Legion TV show, and he was working on a Doctor Doom film for Fox.
Okay.
And apparently the plug's been pulled on that. So, but obviously Marvel is planning on bringing the Fantastic Four, Doctor Doom, all that into their cinematic universe. So they probably have plans of their own. So this Doctor Doom film, we'll probably see Doctor Doom sometime in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I think Hawley's script and his plans for Doctor Doom are pretty much tanked. Taika Waititi was going to be doing a Flash Gordon remake, and that was they were going to do that for Fox, and I'm pretty sure that's dead too.
Sci-Fi had a Flash Gordon series a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It was campy like it should be, but it also had this strange tone about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody was going to make a campy reboot of Flash Gordon, Taika Waititi, he would have been the man. I kind of hate that we're not going to get a chance to see that now. And we talked about this on another podcast. They were planning a Magic the Gathering movie, and apparently that's been tanked as well. The new adaptation of Alan Moore's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, that's gone. And there's some other weird, obscure titles also. They were planning on a Return of the Killer Clowns from Outer Space in 3D. So
that's a movie for my nightmares. I'm fine with them not doing that. That is just fine.
Well, I'm of a different mindset, we'll say. We'll just leave it at there. Some of us are mourning the loss of this because we definitely would have wanted to have seen that. If not just in 3D, IMAX 3D, if that was going to happen, yes, I would have done that.
Maybe we'll have to check out and see how Watchmen on HBO goes. And if that is as good as it's looking, maybe they can grab a hold of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and that could be their next big, Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing, too, is that apparently Fox had this big lineup of movies based on video games that they were going to do. They were going to do, well, of course, they've already done a Hitman movie and an Assassin's Creed movie, and they were going to do sequels to those two. They had a Mega Man movie planned, and they had a Sims movie planned, which I'm wondering, how does that work?
Isn't that just a movie?
That might just be, yeah.
Or it could be really creepy and meta, where the Sims wake up and realize they're in a simulation, and
yeah. Oh boy, yeah, yeah. I'm kind of curious of what.
Then that's just the Matrix. So.
Oh yeah. But yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, I don't know what they would have done with the Sims movie. I think they just basically had the property and they're like, well, hey, we got this. Let's
we'll do an Angry Birds or a
well, they've already come out with the second Angry Birds,
right.
So I guess that's
you can milk the cows as long as you can. Hey.
Yeah, no doubt.
Kids love it. Kids love that stuff. The Emoji Movie. God, kids love that stuff.
Yeah, well, apparently not a lot of them did because it did do so well in the box.
I thought it did. Okay, I thought they were on the way first.
Oh God, no.
Okay,
it did the type of business it deserved to do, no question. But I will say that talking a little bit about Disney is that even though they seem to be killing off Fox projects, they're creating a whole bunch of their own for sure.
A lot of weird reboots going on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I read this in Cinelinx. I mean, take this with a grain of salt. Now, they said that they had two different sources that authenticated this piece of news, but let's just consider it a rumor for now. Apparently, they have a plan in Disney Plus to do an Obi Wan Kanobi series, and they've got Ewan McGregror lined up to be Obi Wan Kenobi. That's the rumor as of right now. It hasn't been confirmed yet. Disney hasn't come out and said it.
Sweeping sand on Tatooine for years.
Very possible. But I'd be interested in seeing it if it happens. But like I said, as of right now, that's a rumor. We get more news about that. We will follow that up. But let's drop into Sony for a minute. They've got their director for Venom 2, Andy Serkis.
Nuh-uh. Really?
Yes.
Huh.
So Andy Serkis is stepping behind the camera to direct Venom 2, and I couldn't imagine a better person to take the reins than Andy Serkis, and I'm glad to see that he's doing more directing and taking on a bigger project, definitely with Venom 2, and I can't wait to see what he does with it. Andy Serkis is in, but unfortunately Neill Blomkamp is out. He's dropped out of the Robocop remake. So MGM can't wait on him because he's scheduled to direct a horror movie. And he's going to be doing that, and they didn't want to wait for him to be freed up so that they could do the RoboCop movie, which is supposed to be sort of it's the plan for the RoboCop movie. It was going to be like the new Halloween movie, where they ignored everything that happened between the first movie and all.
Okay.
They ignore all the sequels, and create basically a new sequel, and that's what they were going to do with the RoboCop movie, including bringing the old suit back. It was going to be the old RoboCop suit. And they wanted to basically make it feel very much like it was directed by Paul Verhoeven, that he had directed this movie right after he directed RoboCop, and they wanted it to feel like it was a direct sequel to RoboCop. And so I'm sure that's still their plan, but of course now they're without a director, and they're going to have to find a new director for that. But speaking of movies, CANDYMAN, the spiritual sequel to CANDYMAN, just started filming in Chicago. It's supposed to come out June the 12th of next year, 2020. It's, of course, we talked about this before. It's being produced by Jordan Peele. It's being directed by Nia DaCosta. And what I thought was interesting is I was reading some stuff about it, and apparently one of the big themes of this new CANDYMAN movie is they're going to talk a lot about toxic fandom. Apparently, toxic fandom is going to play a huge role in this new movie in some way.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. They're not obviously not bringing out a whole lot of details about this because they don't want to. They're trying to. Obviously, they don't want to spoil their own movie.
But would this be Clive Barker approved? Would his stamp on this be? Would that make him happy?
Well, that's a good question. I haven't read anything about Clive Barker saying anything about the new movie yet, at least about the aspects of the toxic fandom being a major theme in the film. But certainly, he mentioned something. We will definitely bring it up.
When it comes to toxic fandom, that honestly, that sounds kind of more of a Hellraiser, Hellbound Heart kind of thing than a Candyman thing. But hey. Well, I mean, willing to see it.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, definitely CANDYMAN is the original movies were there was definitely themes running through it and a lot of interesting subject matter about the movies. I mean, it wasn't just about a monster of the week. I mean, there was there was definitely a lot more going on there.
Brand new mythos that was familiar but hadn't been seen before.
And I mean, you're dealing with themes like prejudice and racism and things like that. And like I said, a lot of solid, deep themes in the movie. Like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing the new one and seeing how it develops. But the last bit of news that I wanted to talk about that just came out is apparently Paramount has greenlit 2 new G.I. Joe movies, which I was wondering. I guess they have not given up on the franchise, although the last one I think didn't do so well.
I didn't think it did. I hardly remember it being in theaters very long. So
yeah, apparently they are going. The next movie is going to be a Snake Eyes spinoff, but my understanding is Ray Park is not going to be Snake Eyes in this one. I'm trying to remember who the actor's name is. Somebody said it. I know he's in Crazy Rich Asians. Whatever his name. My apologies for not knowing his name, but he's going to be playing Snake Eyes in this new movie. They haven't really said a whole lot more about it, but apparently that's going to be the first of 2 that they've got coming down the pike. And so, and apparently it's going to be really soon because, like I said, it's going to be a little more than a year from now that we'll get the first G.I. Joe movie. But the last trailer that I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to mention this because you had a lot to say about it on Facebook, and I wanted to get your opinions about it here on the podcast, is we got a trailer for the new Little Women. So, I remember you saying on Facebook that how much joy it brought you that every generation gets their own Little Women.
Yes. The earliest memory I have of Little Women was Elizabeth Taylor and Margaret O'Brien and Janet Leigh and June Allison. That was the first Little Women I can remember. And then, as I grew up, and then we got the Winona Ryder one and Claire Danes. So, Susan Sarandon as Marmee. And, like every, they remake it every few years, which is great. And a few years ago, they even did a Little Women that was set in modern times. I haven't got to see that yet. I want to, but it's like Hamlet, every few years we get a new Hamlet, and they're iconic characters. They're not, necessarily iconic roles. So all the actresses who get to play this, and they introduce something new to it. And that's something that I love. And I think everyone probably grew up, had to read it in school or whatever. And especially it's something important to, American children. I think just like Oliver Twist might be to British children. And so I'm excited about it.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I know I believe there's been 3 or 4 movie adaptations total. And there's, of course, been some TV adaptations here and there. It seems to me, from looking at the trailer, one of the things they're definitely pushing in this movie, and saying, I mean, it was a theme in the book, obviously, is you have this main character who's telling her life, but she's telling the story of it, and she's constantly being pushed into being the heroine of a Edwardian romance, and it's that feeling that she doesn't want to be thought of as only being worthy when she's in love with someone.
Right. Uh-huh.
And they really push that theme home in the trailer, definitely.
Right. And, this is probably the earliest one was Katharine Hepburn playing Jo. And then came June Allison. And then, there was probably one made by PBS in between there. And then came along Winona Ryder. And now, we're getting Saoirse Ronan playing Jo as these, iconic characters, and they all want to get out of this box that they've been stuck in. And, they've gone through this war, and they haven't had, their father with them. So they've had to, sort of learn on their own and learn to be kind to people around them. It's just always been a beautiful story. Yeah,
and I mean, I'm trying to remember who else is in this. I mean, it's got a pretty solid cast.
Oh, yeah.
And of course,
Emma
Watson's in it, and
Laura Linney. Plays Marmee. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And who is Aunt March?
Was it?
Oh,
was it Glenn Close?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, PBS did one just maybe last year where Angela Lansbury played Aunt March.
Yeah.
So I'm getting these two mixed up together. Right. And that one was a mini series, so that was like 3 episodes long.
Yeah, and the director of this version, she was nominated for a bunch of Oscars last year for Lady Bird.
Oh yeah.
And but didn't win any.
Oh.
But with this coming out in December, and especially with the type of movie that this is, it seems very much like Oscar bait to me. I think it will get some nods, and maybe get to take some awards home, some Oscars home this time around. But it seems like this is a story that we have to be told over and over again, because we haven't quite got it yet,
And maybe I have always felt closest to this story, and because I come from a family of their 4 sisters, and me and my sisters, we have our own little group, on, Messenger, and we talk about it, and we talk about how excited we were about this movie, and all the different versions and everything. And then one of my sisters said, well, yeah, but that's like 4 dead Beths. Spoiler alert, sorry. But
maybe we need to bleep that.
And we do love this, and that's also a good thing about Little Women, is that you do have 4 very distinct personalities, and everyone can relate to a different sister. Am I an Amy? Am I a Jo? Am I a Meg? And so you can really, it's got something for everyone.
Oh yeah, and certainly, it'll be coming out in December around Christmas time, which I think it's a good place to put that film. And I figure it'll do pretty well. I don't have the date in front of me when it's coming out, so I don't know what's coming out around it. But this is definitely the kind of film that the Oscars looks at, and I think that we might, like I said, we might see some trophies come home, but we'll see how that turns out. Now, before we go, and I did talk about this last week, that we are planning on starting a Patreon in September. I have a page up already. And so I'll just go ahead and I wanted to give you guys the website for it. It's patreon.com/geekwatch. We will be putting it up fully and starting in September. And part of what we want to do is, like I said, we're going to create new content for Patreons. We'll do a lot of the spoiler-filled movie reviews. We'll just stick those up there. And like I mentioned last week, we are going to we'll put up a raw feed, basically the unedited version of the podcast, so you can hear my ums and ahs.
So yeah, you're dying to hear the nose scratches and the yawns and the finger popping. And,
if you can't wait for your Geek Watch fix, you can go ahead and get it. One other thing that I'm planning on doing in September is our geekwatch.net domain. We've been pointing it to our Facebook page, and I'd like to eventually put that back to a main web page where you can listen to podcasts and get news, and also talk to us and give us suggestions or
tell us what you want.
Exactly, because we want to deliver it. So I would say sometime in September, at least the first part of September, that'll be back up and ready to go. And I've been working on that. I've been working on that page. So I think, like I said, in September, it'll stop pointing to the Facebook page. But of course, there'll still be a link to Facebook there. And if you follow us on Facebook, definitely drop us notes, messages, DMs. Let us know if there's certain special content you'd like to see from us. Have us talk about different things. One thing I did want to do for the Patreons is, I know Mandy's just started watching The Boys.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to do an episode by episode spoiler-filled review of them as
each episode. Okay.
And that maybe that's something we can put out starting in September. And of course, there's going to be movies galore and TV shows coming out in September.
Hey, when Watchmen comes out, maybe we can do like kind of side by sides with Watchmen and Boys, since they are in the same vein of superheroes gone wild. I don't know how you would describe that.
Yeah, that's a good point. We could do that. And of course, we got It Chapter 2 coming out in September. Yeah. We've got Carnival Row coming out, Amazon Prime. So there's going to be a great deal of things to talk about and a lot of things that we can put up, and we will definitely cover that. So check us out on patreon.com/geekwatch. And when things start kicking off in September, hopefully we'll have a lot of content that you're going to enjoy, special for the patrons. But of course, for the rest of you, don't worry. This podcast is going to continue the way that it is. We just might get a little more clever in some of the things that we're doing. So, and so with that said, we come to the end of episode 78 of the Geek Watch podcast. Thank you for listening, and tune in next week for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. For Mandy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time. Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.